I'm Caroline Bullock.
I'm Alex.
I am Benton Little Dog.
And I'm Cam.
Our dad likes to talk about us.
This time, we're going to talk about him.
Yeah, let's talk about your dad. And let's talk about my dad, too. My dad comes from the Blackfeet Nation. The Niitsitapi people were here long before the state of Montana ever existed. The land that we're on today will always be Indian land. So let's get that straight. The land that you claim as public lands will always be Indian lands. So any of this nonsense about birthright shouldn't even be coming out of Governor Bullock's mouth. Just saying, settler colonial entitlement is super creepy. I mean, Indian education for all should have had some impact on him, but maybe he unlearned that in law school. While your dad was fighting money in politics since you were born, we have been fighting for basic native rights for generations. You know something? While your dad was hiking, fishing, and right by your side when you shot your first buck, my dad was in prison for the past 4 years. You're probably thinking that he did something beyond bad and deserves to be in prison, but that's the difference.
Native people are regularly thrown into prisons for issues that non-Indians go to hospitals and treatment centers for. Did you know that close to half of the people in Montana prisons are Native American? The last census claimed that only 23% of the prison population was Native American. We guarantee you that in Montana, it's much higher, and this census could prove it. We have been hoping to finally get an accurate census count at the prisons. That's when we discovered that the Department of Corrections omitted tribe names in the census. Do you know what that means? That means for yet another 10 years, we will never really know how many natives are disproportionately incarcerated. That means that over the next 10 years, Montana tribes stand to lose $80 million in federal funding and resources. That means that history will continue to repeat itself. A long time ago, when the reservation systems first started, Native people were rounded up and forced onto the reservations. Back then, they came around and just counted all the Indians as if we were the same people. Just count them up and find out how many Indians we have. It was crazy. Well, that's when we went to your dad for help. Governor Bullock had 2 months and a lot of opportunities to call up the Department of Corrections to order them to count natives according to tribe. He could have given all inmates equal right to give their census information to the Census Bureau, but instead, he turned the other cheek. He allowed the Department of Corrections to withhold census access from all inmates who are incarcerated throughout Montana today. You don't hang up your identity at the prison door. If you go to prison, you still are who you are. We asked Governor Bullock to intervene. We asked him to make sure that Native people could list tribes in the census. He wouldn't even give us the time of day to sit down and talk about it. Aside from the census, for over 2 years, we have been trying to meet with Governor Bullock. We have emailed, called, and visited his office in person to ask to be put on his calendar for a meeting. He's always booked out for 6 weeks. We tried to wait the 6 weeks, and still they wouldn't put us on the calendar. We have organized protests to get his attention. We sang with hand drums outside of his house one evening. I'm sure you kids remember that. We could see your dad. His silhouette was watching us from the window of a darkened room. He never came out. He never answered our emails. He never stood up to say, yes, even incarcerated natives should be counted in the 2020 census. So yeah, if you want to know what kind of senator Steve Bullock will be, just look at what he did as governor.